What's up, crypto people? It's Crypto Beast here, and today we've got a very special podcast because we're joined by Ben, who's the social media manager for Komodo. How you doing, Ben? You alright?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So just for those of you who don't know, very simply explained, Komodo is an end-to-end blockchain solution. So the team at the moment, they're focusing on developing their own blockchains on the platform, so allowing other users to do so. So what really interested me the most is that they've made this a slight impact in the world of atomic swaps. For those of you who don't know what atomic swaps are, it's an exchange of two cryptos, or of one crypto for another, without the need for a third party. So this shows me personally that this company is thinking about the future. For those, I'm sure a lot of you know, atomic swaps will be the future. So before I start rambling about the project, I think Ben, you're the best person to sort of hear this from, so take it away.
So, for me, Komodo, if at the very top level, it's about freedom and security and privacy, right?
Yeah.
But like, what does that mean? So it means it's about like lowering barriers for blockchain businesses and removing middlemen, so that you're free to trade yourself. And as I'm looking at the ecosystem, the way that I think people can get themselves familiarized with it, because it's a big ecosystem, it's not just a platform, right? Yeah. So if I go through like a 30-second recap, it's one, we've got a multi-coin wallet, right? Yeah. Called a Gamma, where you can store your coin. It actually gives you a 5% reward for being active if you've got Komodo in it, right? Okay. You can also claim that reward elsewhere. Now, once you know where you can store your coin, the next logical thing to do is, well, how am I going to trade it, right? Now, we have something called BarterDEX, which is a decentralized exchange. And what that means is you can trade wallet to wallet without a middleman. And why is that important? Because it reduces the number of transactions. And also it's much cheaper. But if you think about a centralized exchange, you have to work through pairs. If you want to do a trade sometimes, if you get a Bitcoin, then you have to take the Bitcoin and buy the coin. But with this, you can do it direct, right? So BarterDEX is powered by the atomic swap technology that you were talking about. And an atomic swap is a peer-to-peer trade without a middleman. So in both situations, you're removing this need for a third party, which is going to open you up to, risks of being hacked and also increased costs. I'll tell you something else that's pretty cool about BarterDEX is there's a liquidity power, which means that you can place more than one buy order with the same set of funds. So if you think about going on to Bittrex or something like that, you place a buy order for one Bitcoin and that's it. That's all you get, right? You better hope that buy order fills, right? But with a decentralized exchange like ours, you can place 5 buy orders and the first one to fill cancels the other, okay?
Wow, well, that is, I've never even heard of that. I don't know why, but that's brilliant. I like that.
And like you said, China's ranked as in top 5. And China was the first to start regulating crypto, I believe, right? And they're the first to reckon, we're top 5, second most innovative, right? Yeah. So the thing to understand about BarterDEX is that a lot of people come to Komodo and they're expecting it to be this user-friendly interface. Now, it's getting better and it's going to be, but BarterDEX is like the engine in a car, okay? And people are going to come along and put a user interface over it, right? So you and me know that something like, I don't know, a Jaguar engine or a Rolls-Royce engine can go in different cars. And those cars will look really different, but the underlying tech is the engine. So we've got a soft launch of HyperDEX, which is one GUI, a graphic user interface, that's going to sit on top of it, right? But there will be others, because it's like a white label. We want people to be able to use this technology for themselves and build projects around it, right? Yeah. So we've gone multi-coin wallet, we've gone atomic swap, and we've gone BarterDEX, right? Yeah. So the third thing is that Komodo allows parallel chains, and this is really interesting. And stop me if I've gone over my 30 seconds, right?
No, you haven't. Your mic is crackling up a bit, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so here's what it is. Komodo lets you build on the blockchain, right? Yeah. But whereas Ethereum has all of the projects on the same chain, think about it like a motorway, right? It's getting congested. You can be impacted by other drivers. There could be governance issues, like toll bridges could be introduced, and the fees are going to get raised, right? Komodo gives you your own motorway, right? And if it gets so busy because you're so successful, you can add extra lanes to it. So that's one simple way of thinking about it. But I'll tell you something else that's really interesting, because not only do you get that independence, when you're building on the same chain, like with Ethereum, you have a certain amount of protection, right? Because if you understand what hash rate is the electricity that's running through the miners as they're trying to solve the blocks, right? Now think about it like a really big river of electricity. Okay, yeah. If you're on Ethereum, you're kind of protected by the herd. If you go and create your own chain by yourself, your hash rate is going to be like a little stream or creek. So it's very easy to manipulate it or dam it or do a 51% attack, like you've seen in the news recently. Yeah. Projects have got 51% attacked, right? Now, what Komodo does, if you have a look at a graph, and I'll share it with you later if you want to share it with your audience, right? Definitely. Yeah. But if we were looking at the graph, Bitcoin's hash rate is gargantuanly bigger than anything else, including Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash. There is not any comparison. And it's something that people aren't always aware of, is just how big Bitcoin's hash rate is. Now, the thing is that instead of it being a creek, it's like a massive river. It's so deep, it's so broad that it's really difficult to attack. It's almost impossible, So what Komodo does is it lets a blockchain business build their own chain, but it uses delayed proof of work, which is a technology that's been invented by James Lee, who's our founder, and that notarizes on the Bitcoin chain. So what it means is, for your small project that you're building, because you're a blockchain entrepreneur, it means that you've got the same privilege, the same security as Bitcoin's hash rate, and that is amazing. Like people, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And like you're looking around crypto, and there's so many interesting people. But I loved what Ivan on Tech said about like just less hype, build more things, and that's what we're doing at Komodo. You've got a team of like world-class developers that are just creating so much. But I've got one last thing to say, and then my explanation of Komodo is finished. Yeah. Now, we've gone through the wallet. We went through atomic swaps. We talked about BioDex, and we talked about you being able to build your own chain, right? Yeah. So why does Komodo lower barriers? Because when you build that chain, you get instant access to BioDex, which means your token can be traded. It means you've got some liquidity, right? And one of the big problems a project has when it builds on a blockchain is being held to these cost-prohibitive fees. Now, you might choose to get on an exchange later because it's because it'll be worth it. But if you're starting your business off at the beginning, you might not have those funds, right? Like if you're running the ICO, right? So the point is that if you build on Komodo, you're getting access to the liquidity. You've got somewhere on a wallet where you're going to be able to store the coin. Plus, you've got the security of Bitcoin. And so that's why if we go back to that Ethereum analogy, you could also think about Ethereum as like almost like a big castle that everybody's getting inside, and Komodo is like a neighborhood where everybody has their own house. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. Like Komodo is an ecosystem that is much bigger than most projects, and that's why so far marketing has struggled to catch up with the prolific work that the devs are doing.
Yeah, I do. I really like what you said in regards to less hype and more on the projects and projects, the ones that you've been compared to, on the ratings, where you were rated number 5 is projects like Neo, and they're looking for the future, just like yourself. You're looking at atomic swaps, you're looking at the future. What will the market be like in the future? And that's what you're focusing on, and that's what I like about Komodo. You're not out there to grab money right now, but you're looking for the future, etc.
James.
Eddie, can I just say one thing, Ben? Your explanation of the Komodo platform, I'd say it was probably the best explanation I've ever heard of any platform, because you made it so simple. I mean, I'm not tech savvy, and often people will go on and they'll give you all these big words, but your highway explanation and the security that it offers was brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm explaining it to my dad all the time, so I really have to polish my.
It was really simple and straightforward, and I was able to pick it up very quickly. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think that's what people need. But I think, Paul, you had a couple questions quite relevant to what we've been discussing so far.
Yeah, I did. Actually, one thing I noticed about the atomic swaps today, Ben, I was reading an article somewhere where currently to do atomic swaps, for most people, if they were to do it, they each need to download the individual blockchain of the coin they're wanting to swap. But Komodo's overcome that, haven't they? They've made it a far more simple process as well.
Yeah. Well, we've done over 100K atomic swaps, which, as far as I know, hands on heart, I don't think anyone's near that, you know. But more importantly, it's not the number of atomic swaps. We've bridged the gap between Bitcoin and Ethereum, so you can do an atomic swap. We were calling them atomic swaps, but I was pushing to just stick to atomic because we don't want to make it complicated, right? But it means that you can do an atomic swap between an ERC20 token and a Bitcoin protocol token. And so that was really interesting because it means that over 95% of all coins and tokens, probably 99, right? But let's say 95% of all coins and tokens in existence can be supported by the atomic swaps and by Bitadex, right? So it's really cutting edge technology, you know, and we're adding coins all the time. You know how simple it is? If somebody had a chain and they wanted to get their coin listed on Bitadex, they don't have to go through a listing fee. They're not going to get charged prohibitive pricing. All they need to do is add a couple of lines of code and, you know, email to one of our devs and it can get added. You know, it's really, the guys at Komodo really do have like an ideology about freedom and decentralization and wanting to empower people. Do you know what I mean? It's not, as a marketing guy, sometimes it's a challenge because it's like a culture of, you know, you do what needs to be done. You know, you fix what you want. But because it's decentralized, you can't tell people what to do. But if you're in marketing, you're really used to a much more hierarchical structure. Do you know what I mean? Where like if you're my boss,
simplifying it, Ben. I think you're simplifying it. That's probably a good way that I can see. You're making it easier and simple for people to access and use it.
That's right. And what I'm personally doing at the moment is trying to focus on start journeys. You know, we've got a beginner's guide that's going to be posted. Whenever you come to one of our channels, I want to give you a starting point, right? Like, start here. This is what you can refer to. And I know you were asking about marketing, and there's two ways to look at that. We've got Steve Lee, who is really good. You know, he used to work at Hewlett Packard, and he's working on like an enterprise level, right? Which is just, I've listened to how he thinks about stuff, and he's trying to get that product roadmap, and he's trying to get things lined up in a way where, I mean, his experience is very different to mine and really valuable, you know, whereas I'm much more like a community management background. I used to work for a big bank, and what I'm trying to do is create simple start here journeys, give you points to get all the information that you need. I've got kind of 3 pillars. I want to create like habit forming content, you know, rituals, like, you know, you've got our 5 bullet Fridays that we get every Friday, 5 bullets, and you know it's not going to be too much. It's going to be like a short email with the best information, you know. Once we've got past the start here journeys overall, then I want to start helping people understand kind of all of that technology we talked about, but I want to think about in what order does a normal person want to learn it, right? Because you know what's coming. At the moment, everyone in crypto is kind of, well, not everybody, right? But a lot of people in crypto are thinking about what's happening in crypto right now. But what's coming up is fintech's coming, you know? And you know who's coming after fintech? Tech, right? Like the big boys are coming. So we need to get all of our ducks lined up and make it easy for people to understand Komodo, you know, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I agree.
It's massively undervalued, though.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I as Eddie knows, I tend to search for negatives in companies. I think all the positives are always out there. You know, they're published and etc. So I look for negatives, and honestly, I found really nothing with Komodo that I would put up as a red flag, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I'll put it out there.
It does not with me anyway. But the anonymity of your lead developer, I think it's James Lee. They call him JL7. I think it's his name. If it was a new ICO, I'd probably be, hang on, I'm not too sure about this, but obviously there's no issue with Komodo. Tell us a bit more about him. He seems to be a bit of an enigma in some ways.
So James is building on the NXT chain, and then he came across governance issues where the projects he was building weren't sustainable because of decisions that were made, right? Which he didn't feel like were in his best interests, right? So he went on to create Bitcoin Dark, which you may have heard of, and that was, I'm not saying it's like Komodo 1.0, but for the purposes of this conversation, we could say it was, right? Even though it's not, but for the purpose of this conversation, he did Bitcoin Dark, and when he realized that he wanted to create something, a better version, an improved blockchain, which was Komodo, they honored all of the coins. So for a year, you could swap your Bitcoin Dart for Komodo. So they cared about the community. They allowed you to trade the coins over if you wanted to. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, James is like super prolific. Like he's been around for a really, really long time, you know? So he's one of the original people. He's very well known on Bitcoin Talk, you know, like, so in that community, he's like a celebrity, right? But the anonymity is kind of, I understand, like sometimes people don't understand why people want to be private, you know, and that, you know, Vitalik, the Ethereum, was tweeting about that recently, where he started explaining that even he has started to see why privacy is more important, you know, and Andronopoulos does a great talk about it on the Internet of Money. I've got the audio bit because it's great. I can listen to it while I'm doing stuff, right? Yeah. And yeah, he talks about that in society, it should be the state that has everything be completely transparent. You should be able to see where our money is going. But it's on its head, isn't it?
It should.
Yeah.
It should
the people in power have all of the opaque protection, and the common man all of your finances. You know what's really Orwellian is that everything in your bank can be seen by the government. They know where you go, they know what you buy. So you know there are really good reasons for wanting to be private, but ultimately it's James's track record, right, that we would point to as the credibility. Yeah.
I read recently he was asked a question somewhere, I can't quite recall, and he said, yeah, look, I've eased up a little bit of my workload. I've gone from 16 nowadays to 14 nowadays. So he's obviously a pretty hard worker.
You know one really cool thing about James is you can literally come into Slack and message him and he's there and he answers, you know?
Yes, that stood out very well on this particular thing I was on. He was very quick to answer. He was very patient and repeated and explained in great detail to tech heads. I didn't know what they were talking about, but it was very obvious that he was happy to be engaged with the community, which was fantastic.
I'll tell you something that's kind of like it's inner news that isn't very public, and it's, you know, but just in case anybody does any mining or anything like that, one of the interesting things that he announced really recently, like in the past few days, is a coin called Verus, so VERUS, right? It's not even had the white paper written yet. It's an improved asset chain of Komodo, so kind of like a fork, but not really. So it's an improved asset chain. And they're mining that right now. So like we have so that's interesting. I can give you the link for it. It's so new. It's literally so new. But I think there's a reasonably good chance that if the Komodo devs are mining that coin, that it's worth at least looking at. You know, so I tweeted that out once to let people know, so that kind of information isn't always internal. Do you know what I mean? Like we should kind of try and share that stuff. But I'll give you a link after the call.
100%. Just before we finish this podcast, I've been looking through your website as we were speaking, and I can see at the bottom it says start accepting KMD as payments now. So what is this about? Can you just very briefly tell us, please?
I actually have to hold my hands up, and I haven't worked on that, so I'd have to go away and talk to someone like Ordo or one of the guys and just check how that's going to work.
Please do let us know, because obviously it looks like you're sort of partnering with businesses to allow them to accept KMD coin, as a currency basically. So that seems very interesting to me as well.
There is actually. Well, James is pretty sure he solved the issues around national currency, and I know our guys are working on a Komodo 2.0.
Okay.
I did ask for more detailed information for that, so I was in a conversation where they were talking about it. It's going to be like you would have like a city state, you would have like a district, and then you would have like a country, and so that's really interesting. It's not terribly well documented at the moment, but that's some of the stuff that we've got coming up, plus a lot more.
There is a lot. I can see. I'm just going through some of the pages on your website, and there is a lot happening. So I think the best thing is after we finish this podcast, do send me some more information over. And what I will do for everyone who's listening is I'm going to put it on the Crypto Beast Facebook group in bullet points, just so you know the websites and everything we discussed. And if anyone has any more questions you want to ask, please do shoot them away. But we're going to end it there. Ben, Paul, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, thank you for your detailed explanation and for making it really simple for everybody. We do really appreciate that.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
All the best. All right, lads. All the best. Bye-bye.